Welcome to Scale Her Up, the female entrepreneurs show with me, Brenda Hector. I'm a business growth specialist helping business owners to develop themselves and grow their businesses so they can achieve their goals and enjoy the lifestyle they dream of. I'm also on a mission to revolutionise the entrepreneurial landscape for women in business. In every podcast episode, I interview someone who has an inspiring story or some great advice for women aiming to start or scale their businesses. If you're new to the show, take a moment to subscribe and please check out the previous ones after listening to this. We've got an awesome community on Facebook. Just search for Scale Her Up and join in. Welcome to the Scale Her Up podcast. We've turned the tables today. I've got Wendy Harris from Making Conversations Count podcast. Do you want to explain to the listeners what you're doing today on Scale Her Up?
Brenda, thank you so much for inviting me. I know we spoke a while ago and we were talking all things podcast. And I'd explained that I'd done a special guest show where I told my story and I had one of my previous guests host it for me. That was where this idea sort of came from, really, was that, Brenda, we really need to hear your story.
And here we are. Scale Her Up's a year old this month, so it seemed like the right time for me to tell my story, yeah.
Yeah, so let's open the doors on where you started. So it's for a start, it's Dr. Brenda. Okay, yes. So how on earth did you make that leap from being, a doctor of something, explain what the doctor of something is, to being in business?
Yes, it's been a very varied journey and not a straight road by any means. Admittedly, I started my career in science. So the PhD is in animal nutrition. Yeah, farmer's daughter, went and studied biotechnology and then moved into animal nutrition. So I've got a PhD which was looking at the urinary metabolites of plant compounds in goats. That's an
image I'm not going to be able to ever, take off my brain.
I know this is audio, but I can see you on the Zoom and I've just seen your face there. Yeah, that's the response I get. It's a very unusual career path. Not many people go down that route. Slightly more common was the redundancy that came maybe must be 15 years ago now. At the time, I was working part-time and not many people worked part-time in the research institute where I was working. When my boss took voluntary redundancy and then my role was redundant and there was no similar part-time role for me to move into. So yeah, that was the end of that. No funding in that kind of area, so no opportunity to go back to that either. So it's the worst time to be sent home, if you like, because I wasn't really making any money. I was given all my everything I was earning was going to the nursery. So yeah, I was a mum for a while. I'll not say just a mum. We had another baby then. So now I've got 3. They're not babies any longer. They're teenagers. I did some direct selling. So I sold Pampered Chef. Went to people's houses and did cooking demonstrations. And I tried childminding, where I discovered that the challenge of becoming a childminder was more enjoyable than the actual looking after other people's kids. So I didn't do that for very long. And then I got a job in the organisation that my husband worked in, which was in the subsea industry. And I got a role in marketing there. Very quickly was promoted to strategic sales and marketing manager. And it was in that organisation. It was a really lovely entrepreneurial business started up by 2 guys and they just built it up. I discovered that I loved business. Although we did have a wedding car business as a sideline, myself and my husband and his brother and his wife. But that was how we spent our weekends before it became more of a challenge once all the kids came along.
Logistic children and weddings at weekends, I can only imagine. Yeah.
Through that role in sales and marketing, realised that I loved business. That company was sold to an American conglomerate just at the time when the oil price crashed in 2015, which was a big, had a massive impact in Aberdeen because so many people worked in the oil industry here.
It was everybody's livelihood, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, such a big impact. So I survived a couple of rounds of redundancies there, but I knew that big conglomerate where people are just a number kind of thing, that the culture wasn't the kind of place that I wanted to work. So I stepped away from that and I went to study an MBA because of course I don't have enough qualifications already. So I studied an MBA with the intention that I would start my own business, but I could never I never had the right idea. I had lots of ideas, but never one that actually had enough legs to run with. So I was looking for franchises. ActionCOACH dropped into my inbox one day. So business coaching just made sense. It took a bit of the weird career path that I'd taken already and meant that I could use my experience in business, my MBA, and the toolkit that ActionCOACH provides to make a difference and help the people who had the ideas but don't really have the experience or the knowledge of running their own business. It works a treat. Really enjoying it.
So really, you're kind of like the one side of the brain. There's the left and the right side of the brain, isn't there? The one side is the creative, and the other side is the sort of logical thinking. So you can become the perfect balance for that in business, because certainly I know, and a lot of people that I speak to that are in business, it's not just about the idea, is it?
No, I mean, lots of people get into business because they're passionate about the product or the service that they want to deliver to their customers, you know, and they love what they do and they do that part well. But then there's the whole around that. There's how you run your business. You know, there's your marketing, there's your sales, there's your financials, there's the systems and processes, there's how you manage your team. There's all of these things that also need to be in synergy. And lots of people don't have the skills to do all of those. So I can help them with upskilling themselves to be the best business owner that they can be.
No, that's great, because you are the CEO, the CFO, the COO, you know, you're the finance director, you're the bin, you empty the bins.
Yes.
You make the tea, you're the cheerleader, you're the counsellor. You are all of those things, aren't you, wrapped into one, as well as doing the thing that you want to do that earns you that money. So through that journey of all those past roles and falling into ActionCOACH, as is your business now, what would you say has been the biggest learning that you've had?
Oh my goodness, the learning that it's been just a massive, massive learning. But we talk about unconscious incompetence. I know that lots of my clients as well, we don't know what we don't know until we start. So there's so much to learn in terms of running your own business or being your own boss even, or I honestly couldn't pick out any one thing. It's about learning about me and who I am and what I can do, and learning to believe in myself and get rid of that imposter syndrome, I suppose. So it's been a massive self-development journey. And ActionCOACH is such a knowledge-based organisation. It's all about learning and developing. So it couldn't be anything else.
Well,
really.
Having had the pleasure of having Brad on my podcast, I know that he's a big advocate of, you know, a book a week. That's 50, you know, that kind of thing. That's 200 books a year. Just think of the learning. And it's not just about that self-development. It's then about how you implement that into things, isn't it? So there's one thing knowing, then there's another thing doing. So what has been the biggest challenges that you've had, and how have you overcome those?
Yeah, doing what you learn, I suppose. And obviously being part of ActionCOACH, I have a coach. I have more than one coach. So yeah, having somebody there to hold you accountable to do what you need to do really helps with most of the challenges. Yeah, my biggest challenge is something that I never saw coming. I had no idea that this was going to hit me like a ton of bricks. I got into business. I was almost 45 when I started my business, and you know, the kids were a bit older, so you know, when past all of that, having to juggle childcare and everything, they can let themselves in. When they come home, they can feed themselves to an extent. So I thought this is a perfect time to start a business. It's quite stressful. It's quite hard to run your own business and to do all that learning and work out what I needed to do and find the clients. And then COVID hit, which was not the biggest challenge that I've had, but I was struggling. I was I was anxious. I was exhausted and whatever, and I didn't really realize the cause of that. I put it down to running my own business and trying to support other businesses through COVID, which was obviously the worst the worst time for businesses that there'd been in a long time. It kind of came to a head. I made a mistake. I put the wrong recording up on a podcast, actually. Had a client, she was a client who'd done a podcast interview for me, and turns out I put the wrong recording there. She called me up, she was quite upset, but we got it down and it was fine. And the realization that I've had this horrendous brain fog, I really struggled to think straight. And, writing a shopping list was hard work. And the realization that this is not just caused by the stress of running my business and having a family and all of that this is actually something else, which is a lack of estrogen. I was peri-menopausal and I was suffering from lots of brain-related symptoms, which I didn't even realise were symptoms of what happens to a woman in her late 40s, early 50s. So that probably had an impact on my business from when I started, but I wasn't aware of it. I'd kind of blamed the stress of running a business. And actually, I know that a lot of people change jobs or leave jobs because they find them too stressful as they're going through this period of their lives. And I totally understand how people can really, really struggle. And it
kind of blindsides you, doesn't it? That we think we're invincible. And as women, I certainly feel like I'm still 18 or 21 most days. Mm-hmm. But then, I'm perhaps a bit older than you, but I hit 50 and I just thought, gosh, where's that gone? And I still want to feel physically and mentally that 18, 21-year-old. I think I've been fortunate. I've never sort of noticed any menopausal symptoms, but certainly it's coming up in conversation more and more now that I'm of a certain age. And I think you're right that sometimes we're perhaps putting other excuses in the way of looking after our actual health. And it's not, and I always talk about mental wealth, but I think it's connected, this sort of mindset and body and looking after ourselves as a whole. So how did you deal with that realization, Brenda?
When I realized what the cause was, I felt better almost immediately, knowing that there's a reason for this and I can do something about it, rather than it was just, this is just how I am. That was it'll not be a surprise to you that I did a lot of research, did a lot of reading. One thing that really helped is hearing other people's experiences. You're not going through it alone. And there's some really good website and support run by a woman called Dr. Louise Newsome. And she misdiagnosed her own menopause, even though she'd been helping other women through the menopause for years. She thought that what she was going through was the stress when she was starting a new part to her business. Isn't that interesting?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Because for those that are listening to this story, I would say question yourself, because when it's the right or the wrong diagnosis, because when you're going, it's the stress of the business, and you're actually trying to put your finger on why that is, because you're doing absolutely everything in your power, aren't you, to be a superwoman or a superhero. So it doesn't feel right that you're giving yourself that excuse.
I had a really good coach at the time. He was awesome. John, his name is, and he was looking at the blockers. He calls himself the breakthrough coach. And we were doing a lot of work on getting rid of imposter syndrome and the blockers that were holding me back, the limiting self-beliefs and things like that. And I used to cry in every coaching session. There were lots of emotions, which didn't realise, that's come from the menopause stuff as well. He was always looking for, there's something more holding you back. And I go, no, we've got it. I knew that we'd got all of that. Felt that we'd got all of that out. And when I realized that it was, it's the physiological thing, not a psychological thing, I started taking HRT, and it's been amazing. It's just my brain works. It's back working like it should. It feels like me again. So I know that's not, a lot of people aren't.
It must have felt like you were in a bit of a tunnel, though.
Yes.
And you can't go back because you can only ever keep moving forward, but you're looking for that light at the end of the tunnel, aren't you? And And ultimately, for logical thinkers, people that want, to understand the intellect of these things, just having the answer and then feeling like you can do something about it.
Yeah. I know what's causing it. I can do something about it. And it's not that I'm not capable of growing my business and being a success here. There's a reason that's kind of held me back to an extent. Since starting on the HRT, and really my business has just taken off. I can look at my turnover and at where the graph where that increases. That's about the time that I start. Yes. That's about the time that I started the HRT.
Yeah. With all of that, I mean, there's a wealth of experience there, Brenda, in terms of, your background and what you've been through yourself within your own business. What are your ambitions for the future? Is it to champion women and entrepreneurship or of a certain age? What are the ambitions for Brenda?
Do you know, just as you've asked that question, I thought, I don't know if I'm clear enough on this. So I've just had a blinding flash of the obvious while we talk about those with our clients while I've been talking to you. I need to get clearer on that. A year ago, I started Scale Her Up with the intention of supporting other women in business. I'd been to a networking event where the Royal Bank of Scotland launched their Back Her Business crowdfunding support for female-led businesses. And they talked about the statistics from the Rose Review of Female Entrepreneurship. And I repeat them every podcast, that only 1 in 3 entrepreneurs in the UK are women, and men are 5 times more likely to scale their business up to over $1 million in turnover. And if we matched men, it would add 250 billion to the UK economy. There are a number of things that are missing that would really make a difference to women. One is the balance of childcare and caring responsibilities. And if men had the same parental leave as women, then that would really balance up the playing field. Access to funding is something that's not been there for women, and I can't do anything about those things. Those are above my pay grade. But what I can do is showcase entrepreneurship as an option for women, and so interviewing people on the podcast to just sort of have role models there for people to see that, entrepreneurship is an option for women. I didn't know a year ago what I was going to go through the summer last year. And that's another challenge that we need to be aware of that people are facing. I had a couple of clients going through a really tough time through menopause as well. Possibly if I hadn't seen them going through it, might have been even longer before I realised myself what was going on. A client who was having really bad migraines, once or twice a week. And she calculated out that over a year, she probably lost 50% of her working hours due to her health. And still, she was still able to grow her business. A lot of people would have maybe given up. I just want to help women grow their business and navigate all the challenges that are coming.
And of course, whether it's women with menopause, that can come at any time, can't it? I was watching the news the other day, and there was a young lass of 27 that was going through early menopause because of a cancer misdiagnosis. So it can hit women at any age, can't it? So it's not just, you're looking to help those that are sort of 40 or 50 something. It really does affect women from the time that they're menstruating, I suppose. It's the blunt way of putting it, isn't it?
Yeah.
So with that, where do you think you're going to be able to use Scale Her Up to make a difference? What do people do when they come to Scale Her Up, Brenda?
Listen to people's stories. There are some amazing stories of the people that I've interviewed. Some great stories that you maybe resonate with people, or they've got some great tips that businesswomen and it doesn't have to be women. Men will get lots of benefit from listening to the podcast as well. We've got a Facebook group, a closed group. There's a community there, which that's probably my aim for Scale Her Up at the moment, is to build that community as a sort of supportive place where we can support each other as women in business.
That said, would you do it all again?
Absolutely. I would. Yeah, with a bit more knowledge, it'll be easier to navigate, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yes, I would. And I know that going forward, that I've not overcome all the challenges I'm going to face. There will be more challenges. What I've learned from talking to others is it's not just as in the first few years of business that are difficult. There are things that come later as well. So yeah, there will always be challenges. I think they're just going to be different challenges.
So one final question then, Brenda, which is not on your list of questions.
Oh.
You said you were going to be scared. You don't need to be scared. If I was starting out a new business today, what would your one piece of advice be?
Oh, now advice. Advice is interesting because you can take or leave advice. So I was thinking, well, yeah, ask people, get people's input, but you don't have to use it. Use mine. My advice is good, but yeah, learn from other people's mistakes where you can, because it can be really tempting to go, oh yeah, so and so went through that, and especially in ActionCOACH, lots of people at lots of stages of their business, and we're hearing different people's stories, and we go, oh yeah, well I'm different, that'll not happen to me, and then invariably it does. We all go through the same ups and downs, just at different stages. Yeah, get the support from the people around you. There are lots of people that are willing to help you and guide you and give you advice or give you services that will support your business growth. Yeah, it's really lonely being in business for yourself. Don't do it alone.
Yeah, but surround yourself with the right people. I think is the key part, isn't it? And to know that whilst your family and friends will always be your cheerleaders, not always going to be the right kind of support that you need, because they'll tell you what you want to hear rather than what you need to hear.
So get yourself a coach. Doesn't have to be me, doesn't have to be an action coach, but get yourself a coach that's going to support you, tell you the hard truth when you need it, as well as be really supportive.
So Brenda, is there anything else that you would like to add on your 1 year anniversary of Scale Her Up?
Oh, anything that I'd like to add? Do you know, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone who's interviewed on the podcast, to everybody who's listened, because, if people weren't listening, it would have fizzled out. But, there are people there listening, so I know that it's of value to someone. So, yeah, I would just to thank everyone who's helped me continue with Scale Her Up for a year. Yeah, watch where it goes. Let me know what you want to hear, the kind of people you want to hear me interview, and let's keep going. I've really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to the next few years.
Well, Brenda, it's been an absolute pleasure to be able to ask you lots of questions. I could ask you lots more, but I know that time is everything, isn't it, in podcasting? So
absolutely.
I wish you all the best with your show. It's brilliant what you're doing, bringing this revolution to the ladies of the land.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on and doing this for me, Wendy. And if anyone listening, I'm sure you want to hear about Wendy's podcast, which is Making Conversations Count. Just let us know, Wendy, what's the synopsis of your podcast?
The 50p version is it's honest, relatable conversations with business leaders where they share why conversation's been so important to them and what's created success. So they share their tips, usually very how to do stuff, so it's what they've done and they've tried that's worked and what's not. But there's also a conversation that they share with me for the first time that they recall having that's created a turning point for them in their career. So it's that conversation at the bus stop that led to the best client that they've ever had in their life, or realizing that conversation with their boss about being promoted didn't really matter because they can go off and start their own business, So we've all had those conversations where we know if I hadn't have had that conversation, nothing would have changed.
It's a brilliant podcast, Wendy. I've really enjoyed the ones that I've listened to, and yeah, you're on my list for the next few dog walks at least. So yeah, thank you very much for being here.
It's been my pleasure, Brenda. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Scale Her Up, the Female Entrepreneurs Show. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes, and please join our Facebook community at Scale Her Up. Please connect with me, Brenda Hector, on social media and drop me a message to let me know you're enjoying the podcasts, or even better, pop a wee review on iTunes. I'm going to finish by reminding you, only 1 in 3 UK entrepreneurs are female, and men are 5 times more likely to scale their business to over 1 million in turnover than women. If we started and scaled our businesses to the same extent as men, it would add 250 billion to the UK economy and provide millions of jobs. Ladies, you can do it, and we're going to make a massive difference.